because I say this to my guys.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk to these recruiters, treat them like how you do some of these women when you treat them when you date. It's like, for whatever reason, y'all don't really like us too much when we feel like when we be too needy towards y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we kind of blow y'all off a little bit and act like y'all ain't that important, y'all kind of be like more on us.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be like telling them don't come out too desperate to them because they can feel like they got leverage on you, which they do. They do that a lot.
Yeah, don't be no simp. I mean, we like simps, but don't be too simp.
Y'all do like simps, but at the same time,
but don't be too simpy.
Y'all will have like the simp to like bring y'all food and other stuff, but y'all still, you got the dude who, like, for example, the simp sent you probably like 5 sentences on your picture on IG.
I'm weak.
Right. They'll say like 3 or 5 a paragraph on like one of your pictures, you know what I'm saying? And the dude that you actually like, you know, that's cute or whatever. That's it. You know, you get to move on up, and companies care about that. And tech is not like that, because most of the time, sometimes you might get a good situation where you're getting paid, but for the most part, you need to jump around and get your bread. Because
exactly, man. Exactly. Yeah, you got to be prepared to move to pull a LeBron and take your talents to where it's good at.
Man, big facts, because sometimes that little, 4 to 5% raise they give you every year, I mean, it's straight, but it ain't better than going somewhere and they give you a $20,000, $30,000 raise. Sometimes 40. It really just depends on the position you can get. And if you still in the live stream right now, it ain't about what you're worth, it's what you negotiate. Remember, I heard you.
Social media, I used to just like give little cyber tips and help people out, and a lot of people that I just hung around just never heard of cybersecurity, or a friend of a friend wanted to be in cybersecurity and wanted to reach out to me. So things like that. But I ended up making my own Instagram at the time. And, I did Boss of the Week. I, had a website and did all this different stuff, and did Cyber Tip Tuesday, did, different IG series. And I used to offer like different services, like, for small businesses, workshops, trainings. And then I honestly just got tired of it because I felt like people just were not appreciative of it. And I wasn't just for wasting my time. I'm like, well, I'm just going to put it towards something else. So I actually removed my Rita Cyber Boss Instagram page, and I combined it with my personal page, because when I think of social media as, not just pictures, but you kind of give people an image of who you are as a person. And my Instagram is all about cybersecurity, and I have Crohn's, so I'm a huge IBD advocate. So I put a lot of tips on there about that, and then just me, like I just, I'm the spice to people's life, like literally. That's just, my last name is Spicer, but
they need to be on a shirt.
On the spice to people's life, but
just based off of working at a bigger company before, combined with schooling, pretty much all that. We had to do so many, grad school about a whole bunch of group projects. So everybody got to have a voice, or you're going to find out who don't like to do work, who like to talk.
There you go. Yeah.
You find that stuff out easy. To this day, even on the team now, I'm the dude that's always going to be the first to talk.
Yeah, man.
This is my first time being in environments where, grown people were scared to talk.
Oh yeah, man.
And
a lot of people just want to sit back and do their jobs. And like what I see right now, even with teams at State Farm, there's a lot of people just going through the motions, just been there for so long, and they just want to collect their check and go home. And, like those are the leaders, those are the team leads. So it makes it kind of hard for somebody younger to buck the status quo, like we really got to like prove what we talking about. We got to like, like they know how to play the game better than us. You know what I mean? So it sometimes it makes it hard to like really like initiate change, man.
As a project manager, right? But I worked in a space where I had to improve, like process improvement, right? So I noticed that the security and compliance team had an ISO process that was horrible. There was always a breakdown. We had to get these ATOs, these ATTs signed by our CIO. And it was a mess. And so we had things expiring, it was a mess. So I said, hey, I see you guys are kind of struggling. Like, let me just help you improve the process, if anything, right? And so that's when I first got my taste of cybersecurity, because they're like, well, yeah, you can definitely help us. And one, you're a great writer, so I know you can put together these memos and make it sense. So that's how I kind of moved into that space of cybersecurity. And then the more and more and more I understood the process, they taught me, because they had such a short on staff, they taught me everything. So I started to assess controls. I started to do POAM. So I began to slowly but surely evolve into this space of an ISO. And that's only because I did process improvement and I'm a great writer, you know?
Sure. So Psycho, our mission is to enhance security mindfulness. And our main focus is to spread that awareness in a engaging way to general users. We have 3 audiences. We have general public, we have IT professionals, and we have organizations. And for each of these audiences, you kind of have to be able to speak in their lingo, right? So they can kind of get it and see the importance of just security. And yeah, the reason why I created it was because I saw that there was a lack of understanding of what cybersecurity really is. When I was working, at Equifax, people would be like, oh, what do you do? Are you just hacking stuff? Like they don't really understand, just that cybersecurity has a lot to do with you too, right? You have a technology device, you make payments and all of that. It's all digital for the most part. So it really reaches all kinds of people. And I wanted to continue to spread that awareness.
For me to even just host it on Azure, that's $80 a month.
Right.
And so
there's a cost to like keeping all this stuff running. Like
it's a cost for me to use Calendly to help you guys. I pay for my my Outlook, or how you guys book to pay with me, my site stuff. I'm like, everybody, they just thinking, I had to pay for cameras and stuff from YouTube. They just thinking, we should do everything for free.
In cyber, the unemployment rate is zero,
and somebody's always hiring. You could post on LinkedIn, you start a new job, recruiter's gonna be in your inbox.
Yeah, still.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's so funny, guys. I'm gonna be repetitive right here, but it's just like women. You post your new woman on social media, all the women automatically start measuring you. Oh, that's her. Oh, you just was talking to me last week in the DMs. And they do the same thing. Jobs operate the same way. So I'm telling you, listen to me. They
listen to this man.
A lot of these positions pay over $100,000, depending on what it is. It all depends on what it is. And then I was working in, and I'll just give you an example where I was at when I was in Afghanistan. I was making 220 at the highest point. So like you said, and it's based on inflation. They change it every year. I believe it goes up. And that was my first time hearing that number. You just said 107K is tax free. When I was over there, it was like 99 at the time. Okay. So, over inflation, what I'm saying, it's going up. It went up every year I was over there. So, yeah, it's tax-free 100,000. You know what I'm saying? That's tax-free money. You ain't got to pay taxes on it. As long as you don't come in the country. And just to give you some insight, if you in the U.S. for, it's either 35 days or 40 days within that tax year, you have to pay taxes on that amount.
And what each layer does every single time, it's something different. But
how do you remember it? Because I cannot.
So I don't know if I can. Yeah, I have an acronym, but I don't know if it's appropriate here.
Hey. We're grown. Hey, if you young, cover your ears.
All right. This is so, the way I remember the OSI model is pimps don't need to sell pussy anymore. And it works.
I'm gonna try to remember that because I always forget it.
Is a CRM cloud platform system. So it's in the cloud and it's pretty much used to manage customer relationships. And Salesforce could be used by any company, whether it's the company size is 10 associates or 10,000 associates. Like, it's built for any company size, any industry, and it just works well. It's very user friendly. And there's a lot of resources. I actually have about 1, 2, 3, 4 Trailhead tabs open right now. I reference Trailhead a lot. There's just so many resources available as far as like learning Salesforce. But pretty much what I focused on was the service side. So it was the, how do I explain this?
But if I was to do it all over again, right? This is what I usually advise people, right? So you have to kind of know where you are at right now. Like, what is your knowledge base? What do you know at this moment? Like, what do you understand? Like, do you understand networking? Do you understand like basic IT stuff? I think having like a solid fundamental, having a solid baseline, a solid foundation is like really important. And I think a lot of people overlook that and just kind of go from like 0 and want to go to like 90 in a span of like a really short time. You have to spend time learning the fundamentals because you're always going to come across the fundamentals. Like, everything we do in cybersecurity still boils down back to the fundamentals. And if you have a solid fundamental, you can then build off of that towards everything else. So I would usually recommend that people. So I would usually.
I hate to interject, but this is something us senior level people have been telling people on Twitter about doing the fundamentals. And you're 1 year in and just said the same thing that you have not even been on. Matter of fact, guys, I wasn't even able to tag him on Twitter because he's not on Twitter right now. He just said the same thing that we've been telling y'all of not skip the steps of just knowing the fundamentals. So it's important, but I'm gonna let you carry on.
The way I learned everything was I would go to an engineer or a senior analyst and say, hey, can I shadow you doing this process so I can document it? And they don't want to document it. So they're like, oh, hell yeah, come on. And they will walk you step by step because they don't have to document it. So what they don't know is they're teaching you that thing step by step and you write the documentation, right? So here's how I would play it, bro. I had a whole like Euro step on that shit. So first I would volunteer to do the documentation. So then I go to the senior engineer and say, hey, I noticed you do this process. And I got another cheat code for you. But I'll volunteer. I say, hey, I know you do this process. I want to make sure that it's documented. So that we understand the process. So not only did I get taught the process, right? So then I take my documentation. I know it's good. I know it's thorough. Then I go to my manager and I say, hey, I've been working on this documentation. I just like you to take a look at it just to make sure I'm on the right track. I know I'm on the right track. I'm trying to let you know.
Yeah, I think the first thing that you should do if you're trying to get into governance, risk, and you should do 2 things, really. I don't think there's 5 that are necessary. Pick a cloud provider and start learning that cloud provider. And that's really, I think, any aspect of cybersecurity. Oftentimes I talk to people and they're trying to chase like the CCSK or the CCSP, whatever the ISC squared version is. And I always tell people, like, just pick a cloud provider and learn that cloud provider because you're basically doing double the work by learning what ISC squared calls the cloud, and then you got to go learn what AWS calls the cloud. So pick a cloud provider, become known as someone that understands that cloud provider. And the way you become known of doing that is by doing labs, doing projects, publicizing your work, sharing what you're doing so people can believe that you actually have the skills you're talking about having. And then the other aspect is like there's a lot of frameworks out there in the governance, risk, and compliance space. There's SOC 2, there's ISO, there's HIPAA, there's PCI, there's HITRUST, and a lot of this information about all these frameworks is public. So whenever I had interviews with people at my previous company and even now at the entry level, if you just come in with a little bit of knowledge about a framework, that blows my mind. And that's crazy that it does, but that's the people that stand out when they come in and say like, oh, I've read about SOC 2 on your BiteCheck website. And then, I know the difference between a SOC 2 type 1 and a type 2. I know the 5 trust service categories. I know what a SOC 2 is. Now I know that you can pick this stuff up. Now I know that you've actually tried and put some effort beforehand, before the interview process. And then if you add a little bit of cloud knowledge on top of that, and that's the person that got the role, they came in super prepared, knew a lot about SOC 2, knew a lot about BiteCheck. They also had a cloud cert. So it was like, oh, you're in this, you're trying to break into this. You're doing some things that are showing me that you're trying. So I would tell anybody, if you know the cloud and just can know one of the frameworks, at least at a high level, it's going to be easier for you to break into this industry